For this last video, I thought I'd just walk through the markup on the page that makes this page happen. So starting at the top, we've got a graphic. If I click through to the markup for the page, you can see all that is an image tag, and it specifies the URL of the logo file that I created. Simple as that. Nothing more to be added. The only thing that I've got in the CSS that will affect this is, if I show you the CSS, you can see that every image that's on this page, and this is page 2420, and I'll show you how I know that in a second, I've asked there to be a border none. So that means that automatically any image tag that I use on that page won't have the default border that WordPress seems to apply to everything in this theme. That's taken out. Now let me just show you how I knew it was page ID 2420. If I go to the page and do a right click somewhere and then click on Inspect Element, I can see here on the body tag that it says class page, page ID 2420, and that's really useful because it means that it uniquely identifies this single page throughout my whole site. So if I want to do special things to this page, I just need to stick that on the CSS, and you'll see that in my CSS. Moving down then, the next bit is some text, which I used a Google font to create, and that was done very simply. I just actually wrote the text out here and encased it in a div tag, beginning and end there, but with a class of Halloween title. Now, I made that up. I just had to think of something that would describe what I was trying to do, and then I went off to my CSS file and defined what Halloween title means. If I scroll through this area of my CSS, eventually we'll come to Halloween title. And I've said it's font family Irish Grover, which, as I've said, is a Google font. That's the size, that's the text alignment in the center, and so on. And I want a margin of 20 at the bottom, 20 pixels, so that everything isn't too scrunched up and too close together. So that's it, simple. That's div dot Halloween title, because dots are classes. So if I just minimize that and go back to that, that's how I ended up with this paragraph here. I styled it, and if I wanted to make it bigger, I'd simply go to the CSS, and currently it's at size 36. Supposing I was to make it 76, I mean, I don't really want to do that, but I'll do it just to show you, and then I'll just copy that up to my server. I'm dragging my style CSS file over. I tend to work with FTP. I don't like working in the WordPress dashboard, but you can if you want to edit your CSS that way. And now if I refresh this page, this is going to be enormous. There it is. Now, because the CSS for Halloween title now says font 76, I've got massive letters, but the line height is only 30. If I was to change the line height to 80, to be more commensurate with a font size of 76, you'll find that all the words don't squish up like that. So just to demonstrate that, I will update my CSS file and reload. Okay, so you see you have ultimate control with CSS and HTML. You can do whatever you like. I'm going to put all of that back again. Okay, moving swiftly on, the next thing we've got is my Vimeo logo. I've actually got some extra CSS around this because I've got a responsive theme, and I actually want my video to get bigger or smaller depending on what the screen is doing. That won't work unless you have some code to make that responsive, and I do, and that is here. I've put something called responsive video, and that's a special bit of code which I won't go into now, but basically that makes that Vimeo pasted code here stretch according to what size the screen is. The next thing we've got is love our stuff, please share. Always good to have a call to action for your social media buttons, and I've got something here called Halloween Black, and also another class of small. That's because I wanted to make a class of Halloween black to describe a certain size of text. In other words, actually, if you look down here, that is Halloween black, but I wanted a smaller version of it. So rather than make a different style, what I did is I modified the Halloween black style by small. And so what I've done here is I've got Halloween black defined, as you can see here, it's a font size of 28, but I've got another class called small which overrides that sizing to make the font size slightly smaller, amongst other things. So when I add these two things together, I actually get Halloween black but smaller. Next, after that, I've got my social media buttons. Well, I just go and get those from a place called Add This. That's here. addthis.com. You can go here and get all sorts of social media buttons to include in your site. I don't use plugins for this sort of thing because it's just not, not worth it really, when you can just get some code and paste it right into your page. And I got the code and pasted it here. Next, I've got Halloween orange. We've put over 40 horrifyingly good graphics, etc. And that's here. Very like Halloween black, it's just that it's orange. And if I show you the CSS, that just looks like this here. Some of this CSS could be written a lot more efficiently, by the way. It's just that I was doing this in a bit of a hurry. Oops, there's a mistake there. Let's fix that. Okay. Next, we've got this series of spiders and hands, and all this for $7. Again, this is just another format of text. In this case it's blue, the same blue as the background. I'm trying to keep the number of colours I use to a minimum to give the page a kind of unifying look. So if I go into the code, you can see that I've got Halloween price defined, and that's just going to be text with a colour blue on it. There it is, and that's just got a different colour blue there, but most of the other specification is the same. Right, next we've got this series of spiders and hands, and if I just go into the CSS for that, you'll see that I've got something called Halloween feature and Halloween hand, and basically one is floated to the left and one is floated to the right, and one has a background image of a spider, asked not to repeat, and situated quite near the top. The other one's got a background picture of a small hand, and again asked not to repeat. That's all it is, with a certain width set up. And when you look at the markup, it looks like this. Halloween feature, your web pages all stand out. In other words, that goes on the left. Halloween hand, personalize your work. So all that stuff is done in the CSS, and the HTML is just the words on the page. So there's the HTML, and it's the CSS that styles this to add the hand and the spider, as I've shown you here. That's all it is. If I were to temporarily just put a border onto each one, I'll do a red border on that one, and say a green border on the hand one. Okay, I've given that red and a green border. I've also made the width ever so slightly smaller, because if I don't, the boxes won't fit. So I'm now going to copy that up. That's what I've actually done. I've just got lots and lots of boxes. It's just that when I actually present the page, I don't put the boxes around them because they look silly, but that's all it is. It's a box defined with some text in it and a spider or a hand at one side. So I'm going to go back into my CSS. Oh, and on the markup on the page, it looks just like this. It's very simple. So it's not, it's not very cluttered. It's just a list really of things. So if I go back into the CSS, I can mark these back up to the size that they were, and then take the borders off, which will make them slim enough to fit, and then save that. And then when I go and refresh that, it'll all go away in terms of its borders. Okay, and now they've gone away. And next is the button. I've been through that already. I got the code for that online, and actually the button code looks just like this. There you are. You just surround the words that you want to appear on the button here with a href class equals Halloween button, and the code for Halloween button I just took from that website that I showed you in another video. There it is there. There's ordinary and hover. You need the two versions in order to get the hover effect, like that. And the rest is just another heading and a list and another button and a customer testimonial. So if I have a quick look at those, there's my list. It's a numbered list, so I've styled the numbers to do one thing and the actual list contents to do another. If you look at the CSS for that, that's here. So it's an ordered list, and I've got ordered list paragraph formatting. It's just giving slightly different fonts and sizes depending on whether it's the number or the contents of the list. And that gives you this effect here, different colour, different font. Then right at the bottom I've got the guarantee, and I've minutely placed it so that it's completely in the middle of this text, and that's easy to do if you don't rely on the visual editor. You just do it yourself, very easy. You just write the text that you want to write here in p tags, and inside the p tags you just put your image command, and I've got a class of float left on it. And if we look at the float left, I've precisely placed it to have 20 pixels margin to the right, and move the margin top up by 20 pixels until I got it to be exactly in the right position. And that is more or less it, apart from the Love from Caroline and Davina at the bottom, which was just another font from Google, Halloween signature. I go into that CSS. There it is there, it's just got a slightly different font size, very simple, and surrounding the words with the div tags was enough to style it. So that's it.